Hi everybody, my name is Phil, and today I'm going to try and do an acrylic swipe on top of this Ibanez guitar body. So this will be the third one I've done. First one was very much just a test. Second one was my best effort of my favourite guitar, and I'm just doing this one purely for the basis of this video. So if I start with this one. So this is the one I did first, is my test piece, and you can see it here. Purely as it's an old Ibanez RG guitar body, and I used a variety of acrylic paints on this to get this kind of technique. But more than anything, it was for me to learn how to use it so I could do a better job on the next version. And if you look closely at this one, if you can see, other than the fact it's really dirty at the moment, if you look there, you can see there are quite a few cracks in the finish, and that's caused by water in the paint as it dries. So in what I'm doing today and what I've done since, there's no water added. So that was the first one. This is my main guitar project. It's a Ibanez Joe Satriani style guitar body. It's not actually a Satriani body because it's got this curved neck joint here, which doesn't exist on the Satriani model. But effectively, this is what I managed to do with the last one. This was using red and blue paint. There's a little silver in there as well, and swiping white across the top of it. You can see there's a little bit of red in there. So this is my main guitar that I've been working on, and what I tried to achieve with this is to make sure that the paint flows around the edges. So if you look at this, generally you can see the paint has flowed around the edges of the guitar. So from the front and the top and the sides, you see the paint effect. The back, however, is completely uncovered really. So that this one needs some work. It's going to have I'm going to sand this down, spray some white over it, it's kind of blended in on the back, and clearly there's going to be a lot of plastic covers here for various parts. We've got the tremolo unit here, there's a battery compartment, we've got Fernandez sustainer goes here, I've got a Roland 13-pin output which goes through there, and this space here is for an Arduino which is going to drive, if we can see it, the LCD which is underneath here, which is covered at the moment. But today we're going to do this one. So this is an Ibanez RG1520 body. So it used to have some of the parts which are now going into my other guitar. So I'm not going to do a great deal with this. This is kind of spare and kicking around. So I thought I'd give it a go at painting it in the same technique, and this time I'd film it so you can see what I'm actually doing. Now, I should point out I'm neither a luthier nor an artist, so I'm kind of making this up as I go along. So I'm going to kind of do this in steps, and I'll try and edit the video so this doesn't take hours to show. So this body was originally black, and I sanded it down, and then I had the bright idea that I would undercoat it. So this white top coating here is gesso, which is what you use for as an undercoat on canvas if you're using acrylic paint. And I used it on the white guitar because that was a bare wood body. I put it on here and I'm regretting now that I did. I should have left it just sanded flat as it was, because when you put the gesso on, you put it on with a brush, you end up with quite a few brush marks, and it tends to get thick on edges like these. So the result is you have to sand it a lot afterwards, and it would have actually been better if I'd left it as it was. So I'm going to paint it with acrylic paint. Like these, see if you can get these in front of the camera. So I've got a bunch of different colors here. Where's the camera? There you go. Basically I'm going to primarily use an orange, which I'm going to make from the red and the yellow, a purple from the red and the blue, and I think I have some black. I'm looking for a darker color on here, but not too dark. Paint tends to dry darker anyway, so I don't want it being like too dark. I want it to be kind of volcanic, if I can manage to do something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some paints using this, which is in the UK what we have as Floetrol, different manufacturer in the US. I couldn't actually guarantee that it's the same stuff, it's the same trademark, but whether that means anything, I don't know. So basically I mix it on the basis of on weight. So I use 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. If it's really thick paint, if you use a metallic, for instance, I tend to find they are very thick. You need to perhaps put a bit more Floetrol in those. But essentially, when I've mixed them all up, I'll judge them by how viscous they are as to whether or not to use them or not. And once I've got those, then we'll add some of this. This is silicone oil, which I picked up in the local hobby shop. And I'll put some drops into some of the paint and not into others. So essentially, I'm going to put an orange base down first, just because I think it probably makes it easier for the paint to flow if it's got something already wet already on it, because we need it to flow around all these edges. Then I'll put the purple and some other colours on the top, and then I'll probably swipe with the orange across like this, and possibly, depending on how it looks, I may then swipe back as well. And then basically I'm going to maneuver the guitar around to get the paint to flow over the edges. So that's the tricky part. If you're doing this on canvas, not quite so difficult, but on a guitar where you want to get in all of these spaces, it can be quite tricky. So what I've got is I've got a little, there we go, a little thing attached to the back of the guitar, which allows me to hold it and kind of maneuver the guitar around. So this is just fitting where the tremolo cavity is. So to stop the paint just flowing straight through all of these holes and welling up in the pickups and getting in the neck pockets, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill all of these with clay. So I'm going to use some of this, which is modeling clay. I'll fill it all in and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so here's the guitar body with the clay in the cavities. The reason for putting the clay in the cavities is because when I put a lot of paint over the top here, I don't want it sinking down into the holes. And we're going to swipe across the top, and I want the surface to be as flat as it can be, you know, allowing for the fact that there's quite a contour off the back there. So there's clay in these areas here. I've taped up these switches from underneath, switch holes, sorry. As you can see there, yeah, just to stop the paint from flowing through. So next step is going to be to mix some paint. Okay, I'm going to start by mixing some orange paint. So I'm going to do it by weight. So I'm going to mix some red and some blue. Red and, yeah, light red and, yeah, red and yellow even, to make some orange. So I just don't have any orange much. So there's about 20 grams of red in there. And about 20 of yellow. So I'm going to mix these together first and see what we get. And if you can see that, we've got quite a reddish orange here. I think I'll add a little more yellow to it, because it is probably going to dry darker. So I think if I add on this with a little bit more yellow. So we've now got 50 grams of paint in there, so I will need to add 100 grams of additional Floetrol onto it once I've got this bit mixed together. So as this is going to be the colour that I'm going to use to swipe over the top, I've probably not got enough to use it as a base. I might use black for that. So yes, I'm going to use this to swipe over the top. I'm not going to add any silicone to this. I'm going to add silicone to the colours that are underneath it, but we don't add the silicone until the last step anyway. So okay, so there's some pretty thick orange there, so let's go. This is all the Floetrol I have left, so I better make sure I don't run out. And that's yeah, so we're going to need virtually the whole cup. More or less. Okay, let's take a while to stir this together. Okay, so I've mixed up some paints. Now let me show you what I've got. I've got some orange, which is what I'm going to use to swipe over the top. I've got some black, which I'm going to use in a moment just to as a kind of a base layer. Then I've got some more orange, slightly lighter colour. Just going to use that as a bit of a highlight if I can. Some more black. We've got some purple, a little red, and some white, which is pretty much most of the colours I have left, and I've got hardly any Floetrol, so I'm just going to go with what I've got, and we'll hope that that's enough paint. I'm looking at it and thinking it may not be. These things take quite a lot of paint to do, but we'll give it a go. Okay, so there's no silicone on any of those yet, so I'm going to do that next. Okay, so for a cup of this size, which is, I think that's about 150 grams, that came out that is in the end. I'm going to do about 15 drops of silicone in this. Okay, this black one is about half the size, so I'll do 7 or 8. Similarly, this orange, there's not much of it, so just a few drops in here. And same for the red, not much left. And the white, small. Okay, so if you were doing this on canvas, you may not want to stir the silicone in too much, because the more you stir it, the more, I believe, at least, the more you stir it, the more you break up the silicone into smaller parts and you get smaller cells. But actually for what we're doing, we want smaller cells, because by the time we've tilted this thing around a lot, everything is going to stretch. So if you start with big cells, they're just going to get huge. So I generally give everything a good stir. I say generally, I mean with all of my experience, I haven't done this twice. I generally give things a good stir, which have got silicone in them. This red's a little bit lumpy, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to use it. And the black. The beauty of this technique is you've got absolutely no idea what you're going to get. You can plan as much as you like, so you've got very little control over what you end up with, and it's that unknown level of creation which makes it kind of interesting. So when I've done this, I'm going to put a black layer onto the guitar, which will act as just something to help the paint flow. Then I'm going to put each of these colours on. Then I'm going to put the orange on the end and swipe the orange across. So if you look at other videos online in terms of how they swipe across, there are lots of things people use. The first one I did was using a kitchen towel. The problem with it was I started at this end. By the time I got across to here, the towel was so soaked that it was draping over the horns of the guitar and it pulled all the paint off. So what I'm going to be using is this. So this is a Polly Pocket, as we call them in the UK. Typically they come in A4 size, which is about the same size as a US letter. This is twice the size. So I'm going to swipe it across, and depending on how it looks, I might take another one and swipe it back again. Okay. Right, so I think you can see, so underneath here I've got a piece of silicone sheet, which I got off Amazon. The paint's going to flow off here onto here. You're going to find, or I did when I've so far, that there are areas which perhaps you just can't get the paint into and you may need to add a little extra. Well, this will catch the paint and it won't soak in the same way as it would in the paper, and it might allow you to pick a little up and put it into places where you need to put it into. Okay, right, so gloves would be a good idea here. Ta-da! Okay. There we go, here's the fun part starting. So I'm going to put some black over. And I'm going to spread it out a bit. The purpose of this, as I said, is really just to help the paint to flow, in my opinion. And I'm a bit short on tools, so I don't have any spatulas lying around, so I'm making do with this little plastic knife. I get some around the edges. If you were doing this on a canvas, you'd probably want to pay much more attention to making sure that the body was flat, because naturally the acrylic paint will tend to flow off. But because we're doing it on a guitar, which is kind of very irregular shape anyway, I'm not too concerned about it. Here's my black. I actually might use my fingers, I think. That's better. Why didn't I do that the first time? Much better. You see, you learn something every time. The only trouble is I've only got one pair of gloves and they're now covered in black. It's going to get everywhere, which means I'm going to have to take my gloves off when I pour, and I'm going to get it all over my hands. Okay, so that's the black. And I'm just going to pause while I get myself a clean pair of gloves. And I'm back with a clean pair of gloves. Okay, so now we're going to put some colours on the top. And so here we go. So some purple. And we're going to use some of this orange. It's a little thick. Yeah, the orange was a little thick. We'll put some white on, I think. Okay. I should point out that noise is not me, that's a drain that's right next to me. And some red, the lumpy red. I think I'm going to need to use a bit of it though. There we go. Okay. Cool. How cool does this look? Okay. Well, let's go for it. I'm going to leave the black. So this is my orange, this is my swipe colour. Yeah, I'm going to put it at one end, this, a bit more in the middle perhaps. Here we go. Okay, that hasn't gone too well. Wasn't a great deal of contact there with the plastic, I didn't think. So we're going to come back from the other direction. And see what we get. Okay, so we've got quite a variety of cells forming there. Quite a bit of white in this area here, more than I would have liked really. So next step then is just to try and get this stuff to flow where we want it to flow. So this, now I have to lift it up. Oh, they get it in front of the camera. Okay, and now we're going to start to move our colours around. Getting the horns on the guitars is the hardest part because you need to get the paint to flow down there, but at the same time it's just pouring off the guitar in other places. And these Ibanez guitars have got quite pronounced horns on them, so it makes them kind of difficult to do. So let's move this back a bit. I'll keep this side so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm just getting some of the weight of the paint back towards the middle of the guitar. Then we're going to do this bottom section here. Try and get it to flow off the bottom there. Because I can't really see what I'm doing, so. But the good thing about this is the white that I wasn't really that keen on having in here is now flowing off the guitar. So I'm losing some of my white and is leaving me with a bit more of the paint colours that I did want. Okay, and back we come. Yeah, now we're going to try and flow it down towards this end. Okay, I'm also going to use my little knife here and get some colour into these areas where there's nothing. Hopefully they'll flow a little better along there because there's not much paint in this area here. But I can pick up some off my bottom there. At least add a little. This is crazy. Okay. I'm not really too worried about the back of the guitar, but there's this part which is contoured on the back of these Ibanez. I'm just going to put a bit of paint into that so I can use that if I want. Anyway, where are we on the front? So, okay, this is turning out to be quite an orangey guitar body. So I'm now trying to get the paint to flow down into this horn here. I might give it a bit of help by putting a bit of extra on there. See if that works. As I said, horns are the difficult part to try and get the paint to flow into. I think it's looking kind of cool. Come on, a bit more. Okay, I'm going to roll him back from there. I don't want to lose all my paint off the edge just to try to do that. And I want to stretch this orange back out a bit as well. So put a little in here just to give some cover. But we're now going to roll him back a bit just to try and even out the colours. So you can see the way it's flowed around the edge of the guitar here. If I can get where the camera is. There you go. But we'll leave him to roll off the edge a bit. You know, that said, that does look kind of nice, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. One thing you've got to learn doing this is know when to stop messing around. So, on the basis of that, I'm just going to leave it. What will happen now is the paint will naturally level and will tend to flow over the edges, so you will get better edge cover. I mean, I've got great cover on right on the very edge there. That's it. Don't want to fuss it too much, but I do want to get a bit more paint on that part. Yeah, so like I said, the paint will naturally, you know, flow over the edges. It'll smooth off. It takes 3 weeks for it to cure. 3 weeks, yeah, 3 weeks. During that time, the clay will tend to contract a bit, so you know the cavities will become very obvious, as you might have noticed on the white one I showed you earlier. You then take the clay out. And typically well, the question is what to use then for your varnish on the top. I did try using Minwax, which is this Minwax polyacrylic on my first test. I didn't like it very much. So for my white guitar, which I showed you earlier, I am going to use Plastic Coat Clear Gloss. I'm going to put a few coats of that on, sand it back, and see if I can't get a really good finish out of it. But anyway, I'm going to leave this one as it is, and we'll see how it dries out. Okay, this is about an hour later, so it's flowed pretty well. You can see it's looking flatter along these edges here, and in there it looks a bit flatter than it did. Obviously, like I said, it's going to take a couple of weeks, 3 weeks really, before I can varnish it. You can see the cells, it's kind of flowed off the edge there, so the cells have stretched, but there's some really nice activity through there. It seems a pity to take the clay out and put the pickups and everything else in it, because I kind of like that as it stands. Beautiful. Even if I say so myself. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you soon.